Hello and welcome. I'm Min Sunhee with a special edition of Foreign Correspondents this week. And we have here with us 8 journalists. Thank you for being here.
Happy to be here.
How many of you are planning to cover the event in PyeongChang?
Show of hands or?
Right, a show of hands, please. Right, so most of you will be there covering the event. Is there a sport, Elise, that you're looking forward to?
I've never seen ski jumping before, and then I'm also very excited about bobsledding, just the speed of it, and so that'll be really fun.
Is there any sport or any athletes that you're looking forward to meeting?
I'm not a huge winter sport fan, but I do like curling. There's something about curling. It's relaxing. It's slow and very strategic, and I enjoy watching that, to be honest. Yeah.
Right. Me
Armchair
too.
sport. I kind of just like to lay back, you know.
I see. What about you, Fred?
I want to see ice skating. I find it and short track. I find it particularly impressive. But I have to say, when I will go to PyeongChang to cover the games, I will do more like human stories. So I might not be able to see a lot of competition. Actually, I might probably meet some people and.
Right, the PyeongChang Winter Olympics is scheduled to kick off in less than 50 days on the 9th of February next year. In this edition of Foreign Correspondents, we have a very special edition with 8 foreign journalists to talk about the upcoming sporting gala. But before we do that, we'll take a look at our first report, where our journalists, led by Frank, were recently in PyeongChang to check on the preparations there.
Welcome to PyeongChang. This is the Olympic Stadium.
So what is going on that mountain behind that?
I can't imagine performing here with this place filled with people.
Will there be some heating facility during the... it's cool, it's cool. And I don't think it's entirely inaccessible to Westerners.
Do you know the height where we are right now? The height of these jumps?
This is huge. It looks like definitely a bigger ice surface than I expected.
So this is one of the 3 arenas here. This one is for the figure skating, one of the marquee events, right?
And also the short track, speed skating.
It seems, for the number of fans they say will fit in here, it seems smaller than you would imagine. That was part of the plan. They wanted there not to be bad seats. They wanted the regular folks to have a good view. And they also really emphasized the fact that there is going to be a Paralympics here. And so there are lots of accessible seats, hundreds of them around the arena in good locations.
How was your commute?
Was good. Actually, KTX is very important transportation for the Olympics, I think.
Yeah, I think it'll be a game changer, just something like an hour and a half? It'll take people to get here from Seoul. And then, that'll transport something like 20,000 people a day. And the road was pretty good here. Taking the bus today, it took about 2.5 hours, so.
And I remember my last commute here was just 6 weeks ago by bus. And it took a little bit longer to drive. The traffic wasn't as good. But there was also construction, a lot of construction in the tunnels even. So you can see things are coming together, like they're very close with the transportation infrastructure, getting people here. And coming by car, even if you can't get a ticket for, on the train line, it's not that inconvenient, I don't think.
Yeah, that might be an option for people. What did you like best about what you saw here?
Well, I mean, the ski jumping facility is just impressive. The height and the shape and the challenge of what these athletes must be going through to do that event or those events. And I can't wait to see it. I have tickets to see the jumping at night.
Hey, it's colder up here.
Yeah, a little bit more cold.
So the altitude of this place is over 800
meters. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's quite high, and the average temperature during the winter season is
Oh, this is Alpensia.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If you're scared of height,
Yeah,
I recommend don't look down. Yes.
I came here at night one time and everyone was like walking. Do you know the height where we are right now? Like not the at the ground level, but right now, this height of these jump.
The total height of this tower is 69.5 meters, so it's about half. Yep. And we're on the second floor for K98. K98 means critical point is 98 meters, which is like athletes should fly at least 98 meters. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So, ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I want to see the real.
Okay.
Oh, you haven't seen this? This is awesome. It's like the world's largest slide.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the in-run track. This steep hill is called in-run track.
Yeah.
So you see the edge of the in-run track over there? That's where they jump. So from that moment till they land, that should be 98 meters.
Though that's the distance they're supposed to fly.
Right.
How many people peak capacity can fit in this venue? Like how many people will be watching these?
8,500. Wow. And you can also see two more venues from here. So you see other facility over there, the white ground, white field, snowy field. That's cross country center. And right next to it, you see the square white open space. Yeah. That's for biathlon.
That one, yeah. I've been there before. There's some people skiing now.
Yeah.
Training now. Great.
So as you can see, from ski jumping center to cross country and biathlon center, it's really close. It takes about only 5 minutes. You can even walk by car 2 or 1 minute. That's it, right? Compact venue concept is our key fact. That's how we got this opportunity to host this Winter Olympic.
It is really, everything is super close.
I didn't go to the Olympics in Vancouver. I was here in South Korea at the time, but I know the geography of where they held the different events. They had the oval speed skating at one spot, and then they had some downhill events at Whistler, which was like almost 2 hours from Vancouver. Which I think is really good about this Olympics is that they have a real Olympics village here, with several different venues all in the same area.
I think there was some statistic that 90% of the athletes will be able to get to their venue within 15 minutes. So it's a relatively compact Olympics, I think, compared to what you've seen in other places, which could be great for the athletes, but also for the spectators moving around from venue to venue.
That's good. The information center, you two did the virtual reality jumping, right? I did speed skating, and I think I recommend people to do the jumping. Yeah, for speed skating, I don't know, you have to move legs, but I don't know how to move. Yeah, but it was really interesting. They have, speed skating and jumping and biathlon, so you can try all of three of them.
My concern maybe is a little bit surrounding the transportation and language barriers that people might experience here. Once they get here, and maybe when they want to do something after the event, how are they going to get to that place, and the challenges that they might face in communicating where they want to go and what they want to eat when they get there.
Yeah, before I come here, I checked the Google and try to find the good restaurant in PyeongChang, both in English and both in Japanese. And it didn't come out any information. So I think someone should work out for that too.
And maybe that's a good story for us to do.
thing that I remember when I rode my bicycle around the country once and to smaller towns, and I found that the food was actually better in the smaller towns than in Seoul.
The smaller the town, the better the food.
Yeah, because they're getting it right from the farms. I understand this place, PyeongChang, is famous for the barbecue beef, so I like the barbecue beef even in Seoul, so I think it'll be good here.
Yeah, I mean, Korean food's an acquired taste for Westerners, but people who don't try it are really missing out. I think once I discovered the taste back in America, but when I moved here, it's one of my favorite things about the country, and I hope that people that come don't just stick to whatever their cuisine is, that they try places like this.
Do you think that they need a McDonald's or here in PyeongChang to serve the Olympic visitors?
At least they have, I'm sure they have a pizza house in Gangneung.
Yeah, but I mean, if you spend enough money to fly from a Western country to Korea to watch the Winter Olympics and come out to a rural village to watch an event, you should be able to figure out how to eat the local food. And if you really want McDonald's while you're in Korea during the Olympics.
And I don't think it's entirely inaccessible to Westerners. I mean, we have beef here and rice and some salad. It's a little bit spicy, but you're still going to get food that you can eat, and it's good. Well, one of the things that I looked into was there was quite a bit of controversy about some of the venues built for the PyeongChang Olympics here, about their after use, whether they were going to be used after the Olympics, especially the downhill course at Jeongseon, where old growth forests with sort of cultural significance was mowed down. Tens of thousands of trees were mowed down for the course that's going to be used for 4 days. I can't really advocate that.
Nagano Olympic cost like $18 billion, and PyeongChang is, I heard that $13 billion. So it's more compact and cost-conscious Olympics, I think. So that's what they learn from the lessons, because other Olympics were criticized by spending too much money. And among these $13 billion, the biggest part is transportation, highway and KTX, right? So I think it's worth making that transportation, but the key is how to develop more tourism resources after the Olympics.
Okay, so this is the Olympic Stadium. So the capacity of the stadium is 35,000. But after the game, we're gonna demolish majority of it, but we're gonna keep 5,000 after the games.
So where we're standing now, it's gonna be gone?
Right, after the games. So we're gonna use this stadium only 4 times. Yeah, opening and closing ceremony for the Olympics, and then opening and closing ceremony for the Paralympics.
What sports are they gonna, like after the games? It's a stadium, so I assume it's gonna be used for some type of sport. What is gonna be played here?
It's gonna be a park, like Jeongseon Olympic Park in Seoul. So it's going to turn into the Olympic Park, and that building, we're going to keep that building after the games. It will be the Olympic Museum. Yeah.
Okay. So they'll have like maybe concerts here or other cultural events and stuff like that.
Will there be some heating facility?
Oh, yeah, sure.
It's this is because this is freezing here. So.
I know. It is pretty freezing. We're going to have heating rooms, like temporary facility for spectators, a bunch of them. Yeah, and also we're gonna install wind protection net at each corner. Yep. So that's our solution, but we're gonna working on it more and more until the game time. So, well, one more information about this area. So this is just the stadium, but I believe that when you walk up to the stadium, you saw another facilities across the street. There will be a bunch of partners showcasings like PR booth. If you have a ticket, just don't watch the game. You should visit this plaza area and enjoy another performances and also another events in this plaza. So this will be really main part. And this will be place where people get along and also like greet each other from all over the world. So this will be the main spot. Yeah.
Not just the sports of it, but the marketing benefit that the nation of Korea gets for over the long term. That sort of impact is hard to measure when you're talking about the construction of new venues, which if you look around here, it's going to impress anyone that comes to these games. So I think it's important to have quality venues so that the games are successful, which is the ultimate goal, right? You think about the '88 games, Korea really reintroduced itself to the world. These games, though they're on a smaller scale, can play a role in marketing Korea to the world.
Frank, you tried ski jumping in the report, right?
I tried the virtual reality ski jumping in the report. I'm sure it's a little bit different. We went up to the top of the ski jump hill, and it's a lot scarier than the virtual reality, I can say that for sure. I look forward to maybe seeing some of the ice hockey and the downhill skiing. I'm going to try to take the KTX out there for a couple of those events.
Right. Now, a while back, these long padded coats made as part of products to promote the PyeongChang Winter Olympics made nationwide headlines for their popularity. I think a total of 30,000 coats were made, these long padded coats, and people lined up outside Lotte department store overnight to purchase them. Is there any other PyeongChang product that you like, Mickey?
Yes, well, my kids love those of the Suhora and Vanderbilt.
Your daughter, she.
Yeah.
I see.
The children.
Right. What about you, Stan?
Well, actually, I got this neck pillow that is Suhoran shaped, and it's quite comfy. You know, I use it in my car, and my baby uses it also. You know, she's driving back in there.
Aside from long padded coats and the gloves and winter products that you could have to promote the Winter Olympics, what other products perhaps could you have during the winter and perhaps also during the summer to promote the Olympics? Fred?
Maybe online stuff. There is KakaoTalk or Line PyeongChang emoticons.
Oh yeah, sticker pack. People spend a lot of money on Kakao emoticon.
Now, interest in the PyeongChang Winter Olympics is gaining momentum, but public confidence in its success has yet to grow. Frank, in your opinion, how do you view the success of the upcoming Winter Games?
Well, I think it'll depend on what happens during the games. I mean, the thing about sports that I think attracts people to sports in terms of viewing it is you don't know how things are going to turn out. It's not like a movie where you know the ending is going to be a happy ending. A lot of the previous Olympics have been kind of overshadowed with some controversy, and hopefully that won't happen here. And there is, of course, the concern about North Korea that I think is a little bit unfounded. So I'm hoping that won't be the sort of disruption that some people might anticipate.
Now, efforts to promote PyeongChang on the global stage continue, and President Moon Jae-in is also doing his part to join the campaign. Now, I'm sure you've seen quite a few of the videos online to promote the PyeongChang Winter Olympics. Is there one particular video that comes to mind that you liked, that you saw and you liked?
I'm sure we've all seen plenty of videos with Ms. Kim Yuna, the famous figure skater. She promotes pretty much everything these days, but there was one video, I believe she was a part of it. They cut a commercial, I think, once the Olympic torch arrived, and there were some shots of the people initially carrying the torch from Incheon south, and I thought that was a nice commercial. They had a young figure skater who hopes to join the ranks internationally that Kim Yuna did, and I enjoyed that one.
Quite recently, the International Olympic Committee banned Russia from taking part in the PyeongChang Winter Olympics in light of evidence of an unprecedented systematic manipulation of the anti-doping system, which led to the series of suspensions for the country's athletes. Stan, how do you see this decision as affecting the upcoming PyeongChang Winter Olympics?
Well, of course, it's going to affect it in certain ways. I think there will be less Russian fans coming to the Olympics. A lot of Russians are fans of ice hockey, and since the team would not be participating, then we would not expect so many. But still, there would be some Russian athletes, quite famous Russian athletes, participating in the Olympics under the neutral flag. I would say it will affect the games, but not as drastically, so we can expect, I think, a good show anyway.
Also, recently, Cheongwade spoke of President Trump, U.S. President Donald Trump, speaking of sending his family to the PyeongChang Winter Olympics. How do you interpret these words of intention by the U.S. President, Elise?
Well, the decision hasn't been made yet which sort of top name U.S. leaders are actually going to come. There was a lot of talk that at least Vice President Pence would be attending the games. And obviously this is different than Sochi, which for political reasons, the U.S. top leadership did not attend. So there is a high likelihood that the vice president still comes, and family members, I think, would come in the place of the president who just spent some time in Asia. So I think this is all signaling ahead of what decision is finally made. This administration has been well known to make decisions very, very late. And so this is kind of par for the course expected, I would say.
Mm-hmm. There's also much talk about the productive use of the Olympic facilities after the event. What would be one way of making productive use of these facilities, in your opinion, Koichi?
I think there are two aspects. One is to vitalize the tourism industry after the Olympics. And other thing is to encourage local community to love more winter sports. And when we look back at the Nagano's experience in Karuizawa, it's a small town. It was a venue for curling, and after the Olympic, the curling was boomed in this small town, and now there are 20 teams within this town, and they even built new curling facility in 2013. And next year in PyeongChang Olympic, the team from that town will attend the Olympics. So it's a kind of good success story.
Right, it is. How are the facilities in your country being maintained, Fred?
France has a strong winter sport tradition, so we hosted the Winter Olympics several times. And of course, the installation, the infrastructure are widely used because we have a strong tourism industry. And this is what Koichi mentioned. I think it's a very good point. There is not so many places in Asia when you can do winter sport, you can go skiing. So I really think it's a great opportunity for PyeongChang and for Korea to be on the map for all the Asian tourists who suddenly want to do winter sports.
Right. Right. Amid tensions on the Korean peninsula in light of Pyongyang's standoff with the international community, a key objective of the upcoming PyeongChang Winter Olympic Games is ensuring a safe and peaceful Olympic event. Before we delve into that, we'll take a look at our second report brought to you by our journalists from the DMZ.
Let's go this way.
No, the Fez village told us. I don't think 200 people can fit in.
North and then Mathis and south.
Are you okay, Stan? Is it too high to go for you?
So guys, what do you think of this visit? What was your favorite place?
My favorite place was the Unification Village. We talked to a lot of interesting people there, a shop owner, a school teacher, and a local resident who's lived there for decades. And they all said they feel really safe and just despite the fact that the border is so close. It's a very, very cute countryside village. The elementary school in Paju. Yeah, I'd like to know how many kids go to this school.
Yeah, I want to know too.
Yeah.
How many students in this school?
Include kindergarten and 53.
53 students? Wow. Oh, but I thought there was only 200 people in this village. Okay.
I have a question. How do you get a job here? Is it a special appointment because this is a secure village and you have to have ID every time you come and go? Is it a special kind of? Yeah.
지원해서 왔어요.
네.
여기 선생님들이 다 오고 싶어하는 학교예요. 오랫동안 저기 살았기 때문에 어렵거나 또 위협적이거나 하는 생각을 저희는 안 하고요. 굉장히 평화스러운 학교고 작은 학교고 아이들이 행복하게 지낼 수 있는 학교이기 때문에 선생님들이 또 많이 원해서 오는 학교입니다.
진짜 감사합니다.
Yeah, let's leave the children to their studies. All right.
That was interesting. Why did you decide to live here? Why?
어떻게 사시게 되셨어요?
전도하니까 여기 수복 혼도하니까 고향 땅에 가까우니까 들어왔지.
아, 원래 북한에 사셨어요?
피란 나왔지.
Ah, okay. Does she feel scared by the tension?
사시면서 무섭다고 느끼신 적이 있어요?
에이, 그런 거 없어요. 북한이 저거냐. 그런 거 없어요. 편안히 살았다고.
나이가 어떻게 되세요?
92. 92. 나이 좀 많지.
감사합니다.
Actually, it's a very interesting story. I didn't expect this, but I think I have a feature to do now. What about you, Stanislav?
I wish I could say that my favorite place was the tunnel, but you know, I'm too tall for that. I bumped my head like 100 times while walking there.
You see the sculpture?
The north and one half is the south.
Oh, it's very low. Be careful with the head. I'm glad I'm not Stanislav right now. Oh, yeah, it is moist. I mean, they were carving and blasting into solid rock.
It was explaining outside on that placard that the defector told the South Korean government about it in 1973, and they couldn't find it for 5 years.
Oh, they digged for 5 years until
there was some sort of testing and digging, and it took them 5 years to actually discover a point of entry.
Are you okay, Stan? It's not too high, too low for you?
Now we just visited, we're just in front actually of the third tunnel. We can see, do you feel a bit of tension when you enter the tunnel? And do you think, I mean, if we take a step back and think of the Winter Olympics, do you think this tension might affect the Olympics in PyeongChang?
I just felt my back aching when we were down in the tunnel, honestly. It does put things in perspective when you look through the end of the tunnel and see the blast doors or whatever you call them that South Korea constructed to prevent North Koreans from expanding the tunnel all the way into the south. That was decades ago. Infiltration attempts like that have long been exhausted by the North Koreans. But once again, it puts things into a bit of perspective. There is still technically a war. There is still a lot of tension between the two countries. But if we look at the past, we saw South Korea host a wonderfully successful 1988 Olympics. Since then, there was the Incheon Asian Games, there was the Busan Games, and North Korea has danced around attending those events or, you know, threatened in the build-up to them, but they've always been held and they've always been successful.
Yeah, in my opinion, nothing would happen during the Olympics. maybe only some minor unexpected incidents, like maybe some other North Korean soldier would like to run away. But definitely that wouldn't be organized or orchestrated by the government. So I have that impression.
And I find it interesting that South Korea now is considering to postpone the military exercise with the US.
Yeah.
I think that
would be a wise decision.
Exactly, that's a decision that probably reduce the chance of North Korean provocation or doing something rash during the games.
I like actually the Dora Observatory. I like going there. It's not my first time, but I'm glad I had a chance to come back and see the North Korea again through the looking glass, yeah, what they call.
Let's go this way.
I mean, that sign's been there for a long time, right?
Yeah.
Since
and,
'53.
There is a lot of military. We see a lot of camps and soldiers. So the beginning of unification is a bit, difficult to feel so far.
It's hard to feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we feel more separation when we just see North Korea from
exactly.
inside.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
let's
move on.
Let's go see North Korea.
Flag is still the DPRK flag.
I used to work in North Korea for 2 years.
Oh yeah?
Before, yeah. That was, more than 10 years ago already, but it's a strange feeling to see it again from this side.
You were at the TOS Bureau?
Oh yeah,
in
yeah.
Pyongyang?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
I was a bureau chief for 2.5 years at that time.
I mean, back home, the image of North Korea is a country with nuclear weapons and a crazy leader, but from here, it's just some small mountains and an empty landscape. I mean, if you were teleported to this spot and you didn't know where you were, you wouldn't know it's North Korea. It looks like any other vast landscape, really.
Yeah, right. There are so many such landscapes, like in South Korea and in other parts of South Korea.
Similar terrain.
And after seeing North Korea for so close, what do you think the main countries like US, China, what will be their relations with North Korea?
Well, I would say that probably at this point of time, Russia probably has got the best relationship with North Korea out of all other major powers, including China. Just a few months ago, Russia has offered its plan to negotiate through this crisis and solve the North Korean issue peacefully. So hopefully, that would be the way to go.
Yeah. This is an interesting place to be to discuss this topic, especially with the very stern-looking guards watching us. But this experience hasn't really impacted, the way I think or see the relationship between these countries, despite seeing North Korea in this light. I mean, when it comes to North Korea and the U.S., I think we look to China, and the U.S. believes more pressure is the only way to convince China to act. But I simply don't think that approach will ever work. It's going to be on China's own terms if it wants to convince North Korea, if it even can convince North Korea to downgrade its weapons program or even some sort of halt. I think there is room for diplomacy.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. And the fact that we could see from a Dorasan observatory, we could see the Kaesong industrial complex, that's something that was completely unthinkable 20 years ago. And the fact that the two Koreas were able to cooperate, it used to be a military area, and it became a zone for cooperation. So I think gives a bit of hope that maybe we could again restart cooperation and we can find an agreement with North Korea.
It's only been closed for a number of years now. So
exactly. Yeah.
The potential exists under the Moon government.
I'm sure there is still room for cooperation. And This is a building dedicated to the separated families.
So it looks like a place for worship.
Yeah, I heard like many families who cannot do the traditional families in the hometown. They come next to the border to do it for each traditional event, like Solal or Chuseok.
Seeing that old rusting train really reminds me of the division and how things are at a standstill right now. Exchanges across the border.
All kinds of exchanges.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fred, you used to work in North Korea, and you've seen the people live there. And I mean, what would it mean for family reunions to start again?
For me, the tragedy of the separated families is really the saddest thing I can think of when I think of the division. I mean, as a journalist, we met a lot of separated family members. Every time it's such sad stories. And this train, when you see the railway that stops, that doesn't go farther, that's indeed pretty tragic. I hope two Koreas can somehow find a way to allow these families to meet.
Yeah, the Moon government really set out with plans to thaw ties and allow for these exchanges, but right now it's just not the right climate for that.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult.
I just hope that North Korea would send its athletes to the Olympics.
Yeah.
That would be a great move, and that would help to ease tension and, you know, relax a little bit for both sides.
Now, that was a trip to the DMZ in Paju by Fred, Bruce and Stan. For the rest of you, before we talked to you again, for the rest of you, have you also been to any place on the peninsula that symbolizes perhaps a division between the two Koreas?
I've been to Pyongyang, if that symbolizes the division.
And how long were you in Pyongyang for?
I went there for like a 3-night, 4-day trip back in 2007. Nominally as a tourist, but I did manage to do a report while I was there.
I see. How was it?
What I understand, Pyongyang is a very different city now compared to 2007, but you know, it was, I know I'd read about North Korea and what life was like in Pyongyang for so long, and it was just great to actually see it in person, although I was well aware that I was on a government led tour. We always had minders with us the entire time, but nonetheless, though, it was a very memorable experience.
Right. Going to your trip to the DMZ, maybe a few words, Bruce. What was it like being there?
Well, it was cold, number one. That's the trend right now. It's just the season. The most memorable moment was when we visited Unification Village, which sits near the border. And I think what people outside of Korea anticipate is an area that's maybe dark in terms of the way people feel, and there's tension, and there's constant military presence. But it's not like that at all. The people there are very pleasant. We got nosy and walked right into a school and spoke with a teacher and saw some students, and they kind of all laughed when we brought up the fact that North Korea is just 20 kilometers away. How do you feel? Well, they don't feel much other than happiness in Unification Village. It's quiet, it's peaceful. A lot of people go there to retire. So that was really something that stood out to me.
Right. What about you, Fred?
Yeah, totally. I was lucky enough to be able to record some people, and the answer was always, oh, well, North Korea. It's just North Korea. We're used to it. We're not afraid. That was interesting, really, to see people living so close to the border and being much less worried than my parents at home in France, for example.
Right. What about you, Stan? I understand you also went to the THAAD infiltration tunnel?
Yeah, actually the infiltration tunnel was the worst part for me because it was very difficult to walk up all those 400 meters. Yeah, it's an interesting experience, you know, to see how these literally underground activities work. As far as I see nowadays, it became calmer, and you know, North Korea is not digging those tunnels anymore. At least nobody knows that.
Right, that's true. My next question is going to be a little bit more general, but do you see the Olympics as contributing to world peace, Elise?
Well, to the extent that we are now in a world where multilateralism seems to be kind of on the decline, getting a bunch of countries together, dozens of countries together in one event, or not one event, one actual meetup is could be considered positive. You know, I don't know that this is going to have large geopolitical influence because each country still has their own strategic objectives that actually have nothing to do with the success of their sports teams. But just getting to see the globe kind of come together is always something that's heartening, I think, for a lot of folks who are becoming more cynical in 2017, heading into 2018.
That's true.
If I can add something, there is not actually so many examples of a sport event bringing tangible results in terms of world peace. There is actually counter-example in 1969. There is a soccer game between Honduras and Salvador that actually ended up in a real war between the two countries. But there is some encouraging examples. And I can think of South Africa, how Nelson Mandela used rugby to try to bring reconciliation and to prevent civil war within its own country, which is a pretty strong example. Or even, I mean, if you think that democracy can bring peace, I think the Seoul Olympics in '88 is a good example of how I think the Olympic Games plays a role in helping democracy come to South Korea.
I think the Olympics have always symbolized the achievement of peace. London Games after World War II, the Tokyo Olympics in '62, showing that Japan had made it after early 20th century militarism. And again, yeah, 1988 Olympics was the sign that South Korea had achieved democracy and that, you know, the Korean Peninsula was no longer at a state of war.
What, Koichi, are the chances of a missile test or a nuclear test by North Korea during the PyeongChang Winter Olympics?
You have to ask that to Kim Jong-un, but
just waiting to ask.
Yeah, I think it solely depends on what is their development plan for the missile in 2018. But well, hopefully they also postpone their missile test.
Well, we might get a better idea. Kim Jong-un, the leader of North Korea, always begins the year with a New Year's address. And so that is going to come well in advance of the Olympic Games. So that might actually kind of telegraph what is going to happen or what North Korea's goals are in 2018 that might be helpful as folks prepare for the Olympics.
And there's been a lot of speculation that he's going to say something like, we have finished the development of our nuclear and missile programs now. And I think that might indicate a bit of a lull taking place before any more testing.
But you know, there's not a good precedent. In 2002, during the World Cup that South Korea and Japan co-hosted, there was a battle in the Yellow Sea, West Sea, and some South Korean sailors died during that clash with North Korea's Navy. But it didn't disrupt the games. There was still, in 2002, I was here as a student at the time, the atmosphere was still great despite an actual military clash taking place.
Well, I hope North Korea would finally decide to send its athletes to the Olympics. And I think if they do that, then the chance of launching missiles or making a nuclear test would be much lower than
That's
possible.
true.
Yeah.
It's something that we're all hoping for. Earlier in December, Nikki Haley, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, prompted much speculation by claiming that America's participation in the PyeongChang Winter Olympics is an open question. Now, her words prompted talk that the American athletes might not join the Games. Of course, she reaffirmed the country's participation later. How do you interpret this incident?
I think she's just an unprepared diplomat. I mean, there's a lot of times, I think, that we've witnessed in this administration where folks just aren't used to being careful about what they're saying because they're not thinking about the sort of global consequences and how people might receive things. And so, I mean, this was, to be fair to her, this was in the context of a much longer conversation or remarks, and so this got really drilled into, and people ended up forcing her to kind of retract or backtrack a little bit.
Right. Back in September, Fred, French sports officials also voiced concerns about partaking in the PyeongChang Winter Olympics, given the standoff with North Korea, but then they reaffirmed their participation also. Do you foresee any other country perhaps dropping out of the PyeongChang Winter Olympics?
Not really. I think if things stay the way they are now, I don't see any country. I mean, all the athletes, the national teams really want to come. So unless there is a huge geopolitical change, I don't see any reason why any country would not come.
As foreign journalists living here in South Korea, do you feel the constant tension perhaps or fear of North Korea?
I'll jump in there. I mean, going back to Nikki Haley briefly, saying that the athletes' participation was in question. Well, what about me? I'm an American citizen here. I live here daily. There's thousands, there's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Americans here already. Is the U.S. administration not questioning our security on a daily basis as well? I think, like Isley said, it was a bit of an unprepared remark. And to answer your question, no. It's hard to feel that tension. Of course, when there's a missile test or there's the test of a nuclear device in North Korea, we scratch our heads a bit, especially when there's talk of prepared evacuation or where we should go in the event of an attack or of a provocation. But that fear, if there at all, dissipates pretty quickly. For me at least.
I think for most people in South Korea, they're more worried about what the American president might do in terms of a preemptive attack on North Korea than North Korea attacking South Korea or the United States.
There's been something different this year. I mean, I've been covering the tensions on the peninsula for 11 years now, and it was only this year that I felt that my South Korean friends were beginning to talk about, oh, what's going to happen? And it was because while they have grown used to hearing the rhetoric coming from Pyongyang to turn Seoul into a sea of fire or what have you, they were unaccustomed with the same type of rhetoric coming from Washington.
Right, that is true. Koichi, what can the government here do to ensure perhaps the safety of athletes and visitors to the PyeongChang Winter Olympics next year?
I think, well, if the political figures from surrounding country attend the PyeongChang, that will assure people's feeling, and especially if the North Korean athlete come join the game, then we feel more, I think, safer.
Right, like Stan was saying. If Korea's neighbors and partners, including Russia, Japan, the United States, could play a part in ensuring a peaceful and safe event, Stan, what role could Russia perhaps play?
It's difficult to say. I think that Russia and North Korea are now, Russia is probably one of the countries that has the best relations with Pyongyang at this moment. So probably Moscow could try to persuade Pyongyang to not to do anything stupid during the Olympics, not to launch the missiles or do the tests, and maybe talk to them, try to persuade them to send their athletes to the Olympics. So I think in this case, everybody would feel much safer.
Right, that's true. What about you, Mickey, in your opinion, what could Japan do perhaps to ensure a successful Olympic event?
Yeah, what we can do is, I have two aspects of what we can do for the Olympic. One is that to show the strong alliance between the United States and South Korea, so that North Korea wouldn't provoke afterwards during the Olympic period. And the second one is that to send many people to see the Olympic Games. So, and you know that we have the Olympic in 2020 in Tokyo. So if many people come from Japan to South Korea, it may be a good message for the world peace, I think.
Right, and then also South Korean spectators could visit Japan for the future Olympic Games. Right, yes.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I think it is interesting is that the fact that South Korea suggested to postpone the joint military exercise with the U.S. And we know that this exercise every year really make Pyongyang very angry and increase the risk of provocation from North Korea. So I think postponing those exercises seems to me like a good idea. We'll see how United States react to this suggestion, but I would like to see that actually.
Well, to pick up where he left off, I guess briefly, I think these exercises are extremely important and they are held annually, and it would be very tough for the Trump administration to, I think, delay them. But in the current situation, with the Olympics coming up, I think there is a possibility. But I agree it would be a good idea.
Right, now, before we go then, what are your own hopes for the upcoming PyeongChang Winter Olympics? Just a few words. We'll start with you, Stan.
Well, I hope just to see good sports, spectacular sports. I want everybody to have good moods, and it wouldn't be so cold, I hope.
I see. What about you, Mickey?
I also do hope for the celebration, for the peace. Not too much focus on the Korean Peninsula or North Korea, but just we should enjoy the sports and
focus on PyeongChang, right?
Yeah, right. No, Pyongyang.
Right.
As a journalist, I would like to see North Korean athletes. It would be nice stories to write, and I do hope that the games will hopefully help thaw between North and South Korea.
I agree with Fred. I really hope they do send their athletes down from the north, and it may be a bit of a stretch for the South Korean government to expect this will be a peace games. It does lead to a breakthrough of sorts, but at the same time, having joint participation and exposing the world to North Korean athletes and humanizing the situation a bit is crucial. So I do hope for that.
Elise?
As a sports fan, I hope for some close finishes. I really like it. I like the spirit of competition. So I really like, when there's a photo finish to a lot of these competitions. So that, as a journalist, hopefully things go smoothly and this doesn't result in a situation where we're working.
We keep our fingers crossed.
Exactly.
Koichi?
Well, same as other Japanese people, I expecting Japanese athletes perform well, especially superstar Hanyu and Takana Sara, these people. Yeah.
Jason?
My wish is simple. I'm just hoping for a lot of snow.
And you, Frank?
Well, I'm hoping it's a spectacular event and that it's mostly a sporting event. I look forward to the Canadians on the South Korean hockey team to do well, and hopefully we'll see a South Korea-Canada gold medal game that goes into overtime, but that might be wishful thinking.
Nice. Right, the slogan for the 2018 PyeongChang Winter Olympics is Passion Connected. Let's hope that the upcoming sporting gala helps to keep the global connection of sports passionately alive to make the way for a greater sense of harmony and goodwill in many corners of the world. Thank you for watching.